Hey everybody, welcome back to Starting Out Solitary. Blind Rob here, subbing in yet again. This is week 242, and we are talking about healing magic in any and all of its forms. That being said, I actually do not have as much, or probably do not have as much experience or as knowledge on this as a lot of other people do, especially those coming from things from a more generic, general, modern, neo-pagan, witchy, magician-oriented sort of style. Excuse me. And so I'm not entirely sure how well I'll be able to talk about this subject, but I will do my best. I don't know. Maybe I will be able to bring up a few points that other people might miss or might not think about or overlook. I don't know. We shall see. So before I touch on any other aspect of healing magic, I want to talk about something that I consider one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, about healing magic. Actually, in my opinion, it's one of the two most important things. And that is conveyed in a simple lesson that my matron deity Brighid taught me a while ago. Pretty much all my deities and all my companions are trying to get me to get more involved, to learn more about, and to incorporate more further in what I do know and what I can do, but also other types of healing magic into my repertoire, into my toolbox. Especially when it comes to certain things that they have in store for me, they have planned for me down the road in the future. But one of the most important lessons I learned from Brighid is all medicines are poison, and all poisons are medicine. And what I mean by that is just about anything, if not anything, that can heal you on some level, in some way, depending on how it's applied, can also harm you. It can also kill you. If you look at things from a mundane scientific level, simple things such as water can kill you. You can drown in water if you consume, too much of it in a short amount of time. It can kill you. A lot of things in nature that we consider, that we as a species consider, helpful, harmless, even in some way, in some form, can be weaponized. On the flip side, most of the cures, treatments, so on and so forth that we have to counteract, to neutralize, to heal various ailments, conditions, viruses, plagues, etc., come from the very things that have been set upon by nature to wipe us out, to keep us in check and balance. And because of this simple lesson, this, in my opinion, this simple rule, if one could call it a rule, I suppose one could see it as more of a guideline than anything else, but I personally consider it as one of the important rules of when doing healing magic, is even if you who are wanting to heal someone is not interested, has no intention whatsoever to dip into, let alone incorporate or to learn and equip yourself with the know-how, with the experience, with the ability to harm people magically through cursing, through hexing, so on and so forth. I know a lot of people, especially in certain places, certain niches, if you will, within the healing magic community, are very against cursing, against baneful magic in general, and that's very understandable. It's very natural on a fundamental level. However, I'm of the belief that even if you have no intention to ever harm anyone or anything in your life magically, I believe that you should still take the time and the effort and the energy to at least learn a little bit about how curses work, about how hexes work, about how different things harm people magically, spiritually, on an energetic level, on a vibrational level, whatever term you want to use. And because of that is, in order to heal someone from something, first you must diagnose what it is that is wrong with them. In order to do that, you need to know what's going on. And in order to know what's going on, you need to know what can harm people magically, energetically, vibrationally, spiritually, how it's caused, how people weaponize such magic, so on and so forth. At least that's my personal belief, and it is something that I take to heart, and I do my utmost to constantly learn, to constantly further my knowledge and my experience with, so that when something comes up and someone comes for me asking, for me to help heal them, magically, energetically, vibrationally, spiritually, so on and so forth, I know what to look for, and I can say, well, this is what's causing the problem. This is what's harming you. This is what's wrong. Excuse me. This is what I personally would use or would prescribe to treat you on such levels. And I've done so in the past. So that's my first big thing, that my first piece of advice I want to give anyone who is beginning to walk the road of healing magic to become a healer, even if it's not necessarily the primary function or the primary role that you will play or that you will walk as far as your practice goes. It's still something that I find very important. It it saved me from a lot of harm, a lot of problems, along the road for myself and for other people. Now, the other big thing, and I think this is just as important as the first thing I talked about, and that is you need to help yourself before you can help other people. You need to know your boundaries. You need to know what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you might never be good at. You need to know your limitations. You need to know your strengths, and you need to know your weaknesses. Knowing all these factors, all these variables, all these things will help you determine, okay, so I know what's going wrong with this person. Do I have the knowledge, the experience, and more importantly, the capability to help them, to heal them, or don't I? If I don't, then I need to do my best to turn them to someone else, to recommend someone else, if I know someone who I believe has the capability and the knowledge and the experience to treat them, to heal them, to help them in their time of need. I'm doing no one any good if I sit here and someone comes to me looking for help and I don't have the knowledge, let alone the capability of treating their problem. I'm just going to hurt them further, more likely than not. Also, another aspect of making sure that you take care of yourself first and foremost is, more so than other kind of magics, healing magic in of itself as a whole is very energy, is highly okay, let me word this in a different way. It is very much expensive as far as energy cost goes, especially if you put in a lot of your own energy into it. It is going to drain you of your energy very quickly. If you overdo it, you're only going to hurt yourself. You might even open up a way for the illness, the sickness that is causing that person problem to attach you and to afflict you instead. So, taking care of yourself, making sure that you're in a good mind space, you're in a good health-wise, that you have enough energy, that you have enough rest, that, all these things, taking care of yourself, making sure that you're at the top of your game will allow you to be even more effective at actually helping other people instead of hindering them or actually obstructing them from, seeking and receiving the healing, the aid that they are seeking in the first place, that they are needing in the first place. So, unlike the majority of people that talk about healing magic, I do not have a lot of experience with with herbology, with herbal magic. It is something that I have been told several times over the past year by many of my deities, many of my companions, that it's something that I need to look into, that I'm going to need to learn eventually, even if it's something that I will never specialize in or become an expert in, as much as anyone can be an expert in of it, to learn how to use, to add it as yet another tool in my toolbox. That being said, it is something that I have very little to no knowledge or experience, no knowledge about, let alone experience with, so I tend to stay away from it. Kind of the same thing with energy healing, energy work, especially for the purposes of healing. I do have some experience and I have a little bit of knowledge of energy work, especially applied for healing. My problem with energy work, though, is that when you go to look for learning more about energy work, about 7 to 9 times out of 10, you're going to run into information about Reiki only. And I'm not saying that Reiki is bad. No. Don't get me wrong. Reiki is fine. For people who that it is a part of their practice, that it is a part of their tradition. Me, I tend to try to stay in, for the most part, try to stay in my wheelhouse, for a lack of a better term, of things I know, things I practice, which is very much Irish or Norse spirituality. And because of that, I tend to pretty much stay away from Reiki in general and not touch it with a 20-foot pole. Now, there are a couple systems I'm looking into that are influenced a little bit by Reiki, that were created by people who have, they've studied Reiki, they have mastery in Reiki, but and therefore their system is a little bit influenced by Reiki, but is not Reiki in of itself. And that's fine. I have no problems working or trying to learn those systems, which I'm in the process of learning one of those kind of systems specifically for Norse spirituality, excuse me, as well as developing my own style of Irish-based energy healing, specifically working with the concept of the 3 realms. Or, sorry, not the 3 realms, but, with that to an extent, but more so the 3 cauldrons, which lies in everyone. And I do know that there are some Irish-based energy systems out there, but the ones that I've seen so far, they're so heavily focused on Reiki. Some of them are even just called, Irish or Celtic Reiki outright, and therefore I tend to, like I said, stay away from them and not touch them with a 20-foot pole. And like I said, that's not because I think there's anything wrong with Reiki in of itself. It's just not my practice, and yeah. But as far as energy work goes, I actually stumbled upon energy work almost by accident. When I was living in Canada and I was still living with my wife at the time when I was married, she suffered from chronic pain, and the pain medicine that they gave her was only doing so much. So there was a few times that she would want me to try to, give her a massage, give her a back rub, shoulder rub, so on and so forth. Now, I've been practicing Om for over 11 years. At that point in time, I've been studying and practicing the runes, specifically Elder Futhark, for about 5 going on 7 years. And at the time, I started to notice that I could really manipulate the energy that I produced, that I accumulated around myself and focused. And so I decided to try to experiment with, energy-based massage, incorporating Om and runes. And I actually found it to be very effective, actually extremely effective. So it is one of the main ways by which I go about healing people. It's one of the things that I will do definitely if I'm in person. Well, kind of got to be in person for that kind of thing. It doesn't really work the other way. I mean, yeah, I know that there are some forms of energy work, energy healing that can be long distance, but in my opinion, from my experience, energy-based massage is not one of them. Now, going back to diagnosis, diagnosing spiritual ailments, spiritual problems, so on and so forth. As someone who practices fairy faith, and that my form of Irish spirituality is very much influenced by and focused on upon the fairy faith, especially someone who is more or less basing the majority of my form of witchcraft, my magic, upon fairy-based magic. I wouldn't go far as to call myself a fairy doctor, only because there are certain connotations with that term. Most of the people that I have read about, have heard about, both in the past and in present, they are usually Catholic in some way, and I am very much not Christian at all. So, but a lot of what I do is very similar to fairy doctoring. I just use different terms for it. But one of the things that one of the things that I have to do, and that is very much part of my personal repertoire of healing, especially when it comes to diagnosing, is figuring out if the ailment is caused by one of the fairies, someone of the she, the fair folk. And of course, I have my own personal knowledge, my own personal capabilities that allow me to do so. My particular version of the second sight comes really in handy in this kind of a situation, but also having a relationship with my fairy companions and relying on them and having them help me helps a lot to determine if the problem, that's going on with someone is in fact caused by or related to the she, to the fairies, especially if it's elf shot or fairy shot. And there are a number of things that I can do once I am sure that it is, that is the case, to help heal the person. I'm not going to go into the details of that, only because we would literally be here all night. And also I have some videos I need to record this morning for my own personal channel. The last thing I kind of want to touch on, before I get into that, I just want to say that, most of what I do is either about, from, or based on, folk practices, specifically Irish and Norse, as you could probably tell. Now, moving on. The last thing I want to talk about is something that I find very important, just as important as being able to diagnose, being able, knowing that all medicines are poisons, all poisons are medicines, and taking care of yourself first, because if you're not okay, how are you going to help anyone else be okay? And that is, ethics, morality, when it comes to healing, and that's going to be different for different people. You're going to have to, at some point, figure out what your ethics are regarding healing. Such as, do you ask permission? What kind of healing, are you willing to do? A little bit of what I talked about a little bit earlier kind of comes into play of, do you let someone know up front what you can and cannot do? And I say that because I have come across a couple people. One of them, unfortunately, I even worked with very briefly at one point in time in the past, who claimed that they could do something, but they could not. They had no experience with it. They had no natural talent for it. And because of that, the person who came to them actually just got worse. Like, their problem just was worsened because of their lack of honesty and their lack of ethics, because they're like, hey, they wanted to strengthen their reputation, so they claimed that they could do what they could not, and that just caused problems. I couldn't help them simply because the person who was seeking treatment simply because it was something that I did not practice, that I had no experience with myself. But when that comes up, I am always honest about it. I'm always upfront with what I can and cannot do, what I do and do not know. And that's something you're going to have to figure out for yourself. I hope any and every person watching this will at least have the courage and the integrity enough to, be honest and upfront like I am and like a lot of other people are. Also, you got to figure out for yourself what level of permission do you require before you will, heal someone. And what I mean by that is, if a stranger comes up to you and say, hey, I have this problem, and you work with them to try to figure out what the problem is, what the diagnosis is, what you can do to heal them, excuse me, do you just go ahead and do it, or do you say, hey, okay, so this is this, we know what's going on, we know what needs to be done in order to heal you, do you want me to go ahead and do it? Do I have your permission? Or do you just go about doing it regardless? Now, I know some people will allow close friends who practice healing magic to do it regardless. That's fine, but I personally would only do that if I knew beforehand, if the person that I know had more or less a carte blanche for people to say, hey, I have something wrong with me, just, send me healing vibes. And that's perfectly fine. Personally, I would probably still ask for permission 9 times out of 10, only because you never know that they might decide to change their mind and just haven't gotten around to telling people the updated, their personal updated policy protocol. It's just something that, I personally like to do, to be honest, to take into consideration. One of my golden rules, if not the golden rule for my practice and, for my life in general, is I'm not perfect, obviously, so, I'm not always able to be good about it, but I try to do my best to take anything and everything into consideration, to be considerate, about people and their needs, their wants, their desires. And that, goes double for healing. But like I said, ethics, what you're willing to do, as far as being honest, being open, being considerate, that is something that you yourself is going to have to figure out. And a large part of that probably won't even be figured out until you actually have a little bit of experience. A lot of what I've learned came through a lot of pain and tears and suffering, both on my part and the part of people who came to me asking for help back in the day when I knew nothing about nothing, and I was pretty much their only hope as far as any kind of magical or spiritual assistance. And because I like to help people, even back then, and of course this is before I became very strict and very, I can't think of the word, but yeah, very strict and, very, just very strict about, and proper about doing my due diligence, to learn about something, to practice it, to figure things out before I go ahead and implement that. But that's just me. Anyway, I hope, as always, I hope this video was thought-provoking, interesting, creative, a bit unique. I always try to come at things from maybe not always a unique and different perspective, but at least my own personal perspective. Anyway, it's always great talking with all of you. It's always great doing videos here. Until next time, take care. May Breach bless.